Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update show. Another day where Manchester United is third in the league table, so enjoy it while you can. Well, third isn't first, third is a big improvement from 15th. 15th, I cannot believe we finished 15th last season. Do you know what? I thought we'd hit rock bottom when we finished 15th. And then we hit rock bottom when we hit Grimsby, and I thought, is there going to be another rock bottom this season? But no, there's not. We did hit rock bottom when we lost to Grimsby. You know, things look to be on the up. Fingers crossed, Newcastle are not going to be an easy game. But one thing we know is that Manchester United will have a big summer. Especially if we get Champions League football, we can spend more. And another thing we know is that Ineos wants to be more ruthless with outs in the summer so we can get more of the ins that we need to do. And fans have been waiting for a ruthless approach. So let's get into the news. Let's get into the stories. Let's get into the updates. I hope you guys are all doing well. Alice, your home-based comment had me busy myself laughing. LMAO says, Gaz, yes. If you don't understand, Samuel Lockhurst did a whole journalist report on how Sesko has double glazed windows and how Sesko has sauna and spa in his house. And there was a whole journalist report on Sesko's windows. And I just said, you know what? This is what no European football's done to us. Because we only have 40 games a season this year compared to like 60. I was like, the journalists are out here scouting windows, doing home-based sort of reviews. Honestly, some of the stories that have come out is nuts, but we're not going to talk about Sesko's double glazed windows in today's video. We're going to talk about Garte, we're going to talk about Mount, we're going to talk about Delo, we're going to talk about Xerxes. So why are we going to talk about those players? Because they're all players at risk. Garte is pretty much a confirmed exit unless we just get no offers for him. He's set to go, he's ready to go, he said he will go. Well, he hasn't said he'll go, but internally, apparently, he said to his agent he wants to go. Obviously, there's rumours on Delo and interest in Delo. There's Mason Mount could be moved on due to his injuries. Joshua Xerxes is expected to be moved on, as I spoke about yesterday. But we've been pretty brutal, this last year of forcing Onana and Højlund out. When we brought in Le Mans and Sesko, we're going to bring in players to force Agati out. We might bring in players to force Mount out. We might bring in players to force Delo out. We might bring in players to force Xerxes out. Now, a lot of those players I don't think necessarily need to be forced out. I think they just know their place in the squad and will probably leave. And a lot of those players aren't on ridiculous wages, bar Mason Mount. But Manchester United are sort of starting to do what fans have been calling for us to do for years. And that is really rebuild. If there is deadwood, if there is players that aren't good enough, get them out. And we did that with Højlund. We did that with Onana. We actually got them out of the club when they wanted to stay. They said they weren't going anywhere. They wanted to stay. We went and signed their replacements and then they left. In the past, if John Murta and Richard Arnold were still here, we wouldn't have signed Sesko, we wouldn't have signed Onana, and we wouldn't have signed Sesko, we wouldn't have signed Le Mans, and we'd be having this season with Onana and Højlund in goal. Because what the old regime would have done is they would have said, we can't bring in Le Mans and we can't bring in Sesko because we couldn't sell Højlund and Onana. That's what we would have done in the past. We can't sign Le Mans, we can't sign Sesko because we couldn't sell Højlund and Onana. This regime went, you know what, we're going to bring in Le Mans, bring in Sesko, tell Højlund and Onana they'll be on the bench, and all of a sudden we can sell Højlund and Onana, who are refusing to leave. We're saying they won't leave. We're saying they want to fight for their place. We just signed their replacements, stuck them on the bench a few games, literally forced them out of the squad a few games, and these players that were adamant that they were staying, all of a sudden Onana sees that he's not starting at the Bain Deer, and now we signed Le Mans. Højlund sees he's not even in the squad after we signed Sesko, despite Højlund saying he wants to stay, fight for his place, and believes he could be better than Sesko. All of a sudden these players are like, well, to be fair, Man United don't have European football. To be fair, I'm on the bench. All of a sudden, we forced those players out. In the past, we wouldn't have signed Le Mans and we wouldn't have signed Sesko because we'd say, oh, we still have Onana, we still have Højlund. This is what Man United fans have been wanting to see for a while. And this is what Man United fans are going to do this summer. This is why there could be 2-3 midfield signings, because we're not going to say, oh, we can't sign a second midfielder because we've got Manuel Ugarte. No, we're going to sign a second, third midfielder so Manuel Ugarte leaves the club. Manuel Ugarte himself apparently is open to leaving, has spoken to his agent about leaving Manchester United because he's not getting many minutes. He obviously is aware that Carrick is only interim and he's not playing under Carrick. He's obviously aware we've only got one game a week. But Manuel Ugarte has just played 30 minutes in 7 games since Michael Carrick took over. Unused sub in the last 3 games, and he can't complain because we're winning. If we were losing, if the midfield was playing bad, he has a point to complain. He can't. He's sat there, he's been very professional. You've got to give Ugarte credit. He sat there, very professional, not complaining, seen we're winning, not causing up a fuss, working hard in training, good professional, won't say anything bad about Ugarte and his personality. But, in the past, we'd be saying, okay, we're going to sign a Casemiro replacement, but because Casemiro's going, let's not sell Ugarte. In the past, Man United would refuse to sell Ugarte because they know Casemiro's going and they wouldn't want to lose two midfielders in one summer. Now, it's like we're going to replace Casemiro, we're going to replace Ugarte, and we're going to bring in a third midfielder. In the past, it'd be like replace Casemiro, keep Ugarte, because we've lost Casemiro. No, we know that Man United are looking to offload Ugarte. We know that Man United are looking at Ugarte replacements as well as Casemiro replacements as they want to rebuild the midfield. You look at Liverpool, they lost Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabinho, Henderson, and I think James Milner in one window. Or was it Naby Keita? There was four midfielders in one window. They brought in Szoboszlai, Endo, McAllister and Gravenberch, four midfielders to replace them. And Liverpool looked like a miles better side. That's what Man United need to do. Ugarte and Casemiro are leaving. Let's bring in three top midfielders to replace them because we're already one midfielder thin when you actually think about it, and we're going to be in Europe next season. If we could bring in, Mateus Fernandes, João Gomez, Tonali, that's great business. If we could bring Elliot Anderson in, even better. But that's what Man United need to do. So where are these reports obviously coming from in terms of exits? Manuel Ugarte could leave Manchester United this summer, with several Italian clubs showing interest. Now, this was said by Fabrizio Romano yesterday. I covered this in my video yesterday, that Ugarte could leave Man United this summer. The expectation is he will leave. Man United want to do a permanent deal. There is a chance it would only be a loan deal because, there's not many teams that want to spend a lot of money on Ugarte. But there's interest in Ugarte over in Italy. United want to sell. Ugarte wants to leave. There's a feeling a deal will be done. It just kind of depends on offers and what comes in. That's sort of massively what it depends on. But there is a feeling that Ugarte will leave Man United. It's been said many times. United were open to Ugarte leaving in January, actually, but they didn't get any permanent offers, only loan offers, and United want to do permanent deals. So if Ugarte goes, we do need to sign with three midfielders. It doesn't take a genius to tell you that. Ugarte and Casemiro are probably going to go. Maino is staying. Hopefully Bruno stays. But we're going to have to do a lot in midfield. To be fair, Ugarte wasn't an Ineos signing. He wasn't someone that Ten Hag wanted. Stiller from Stuttgart is a no-brainer. It's definitely one to watch, especially on the ball. You've got Stiller from Stuttgart. Someone says Ugarte leaving is a mistake, in my opinion. He works well on a midfield pivot. He's not had a run of games for a while now. Honestly, we need Ugarte and three more midfielders. I think Ugarte, when he played next to Casemiro, was all right. I think Ugarte, when he comes in for Casemiro, is poor. I think Ugarte, when he plays next to Casemiro, is okay. I think Ugarte is an 8, not a 6. I think you keep Ugarte around for depth in the 8th role. 8th role is not the end of the world, but when you spend 50 million on Ugarte, you want him to be a starter. For me, he's a depth player. He doesn't care. He wants his pay rise if we get Champions League football. I mean, that will be players like Onana. Onana will be on 25% more money with Champions League football, which is going to be even harder to loan out Onana next year, who wants to stay and fight for his place and take Le Mans' spot and believes he can. Look, the one harder thing we will have is with Mount, with Onana, with Ugarte, with the players that we want to sell in the summer, they're going to have 25% higher wages if we get Champions League football, which will obviously make it harder to force them out. So let's talk about the midfield. Manchester United are set for a busy summer in midfield. Casemiro is leaving when his contract expires, and Manuel Ugarte could depart if a strong offer comes in, likely leading to 1 or 2 new signings. If we sold 2 midfielders and only signed 1, that would be ridiculous. If we need 3 midfielders, we're 1 midfielder short. We need to sell these 2, and we need to bring in 3 midfielders. What we do know is Ugarte won't be the only exit at Manchester United this summer. There's a strong feeling Joshua Zirkzee could go, and there was a feeling they could go in January. But why did they not leave in January? Andy Mitten said on the loan proposals United got for Zirkzee and Ugarte, which we rejected, he said, clubs want to cherry pick players for no to little fees. Man United are reluctant to do that. If a big offers were put in for these players, United would be I can't say that word, to discussing it. I think for both of them, their futures aren't looking great at United. Andy Mitten is a very reliable journalist. And basically what he's saying is, we don't want to loan out Zirkzee, we don't want to loan out Ugarte, we don't want to sell them on the cheap because teams are just taking the mick because they want to take advantage of the fact that Man United struggle to sell and Man United this and that. But Man United aren't going to let players be cherry picked. Even if we want to sell players, even if we want to let go of players, we're not going to let those players just be cherry picked off, cheap loan, easy deal. That's why we're negotiating with Barcelona. Barcelona can get Rashford for 26 million. They were saying no, they wanted him for 15 million. We said no, you have to pay 26 million. You can pay 26 million across 3 years, but we need the 26 million. All of a sudden, Rashford to Barcelona is kind of agreed, to be honest. And I think what Man United are doing is saying, look, Xerxes and Agate are up for sale. Xerxes and Agate are up for sale. But you can't just offer us a pathetic loan or 2-3 million quid. We're only selling them if we get good offers in. We're going to be in European football next season unless something goes tragically wrong from here. We're going to have European football next season. If we're not getting good offers for Xerxes and Agate, we might as well keep them for depth. If we can go and sign 2 elite midfielders, a left wing and a left back, if we can go and sign those 4 players, 2 elite midfielders, a left wing and a left back, and we're not getting good offers for Xerxes and Agate, worst case scenario, they stay. Xerxes is depth striker, Agate is depth midfielders. Ideally, I'd rather sell Agate and sign a better third midfielder, but go sign 2 top midfielders, go sign a left wing, go sign a left back, and say to clubs, bid up for Xerxes, bid up for Agate, or pee off. But Man United are open to selling those players. Those players are open to leaving. They want minutes. There's a feeling that they will leave, but again, there's a feeling that we'll do everything we need to do to put us in a stronger position and then go, okay, you're on your way out. You're not going to play. You're on your way out, Agate. We signed 2-3 midfielders. You're on your way out. Put us in a stronger negotiating position when teams have seen that we've already got the ins that we need to do. So we're not relying on selling a player to bring in someone. If we're relying on selling Agate to bring in our midfield target, then the team that we're dealing with and negotiating with for Agate would put lower fees in because they would know we're desperate. If we go and sign our ideal midfield target and say, okay, we want to sell Agate now, teams would be like, okay, they're in a stronger position. Now we can ask for a bit more for Agate because we've done what we needed to do. That's another thing. Alice, do you think we can ever win a Prem under this ownership? Under the Glazers, no. I think Ineos are in sport and control. I think it is possible. But if the Glazers are in control, absolutely not. I just think it will be harder. Onana is a delusional flop. He's annoying. He talks about the game like he's a star, but is secretly low self-esteem. I mean, Onana talking about coming back to United and taking them on spot, it's just delusional, to be honest. Yeah, what was I saying? I was saying something. Yes, out. So we forced Højlund, we forced Onana out, which is what fans have been wanting to see for ages. Another thing fans have been waiting to see is now us to be brutal this rebuild. Agate and Xerxes could pretty much be forced out, depending on offers that we get for them. Of course, Garnacho was forced out last summer. We've seen United do that. But 2 players that could be on the way out are Diogo Dalot and Mason Mount. I want to talk about Diogo Dalot and Mason Mount. These are 2 players that are important to plans. These are 2 players that do get minutes when fit. These are 2 players that he's always felt that Amrin really likes them. It seems that Carrick likes them. These don't seem like the kind of players that Man United would sell. We know Agate and Xerxes are getting many minutes. We know that United are willing to sell them. But Dalot and Mason Mount have been, inconsistent. And there's sort of questions over, could Manchester United look to sell them, cash in on them? Inter Milan have interest in Diogo Dalot, but they're unsure whether Manchester United want to sell him. There's reports about a lot of teams having interest in Dalot, from Spain to England to Italy. There's a lot of clubs interested in Dalot. I do think if a team came in with 30-40 million for Diogo Dalot in the summer, I think United consider that. I think Dalot is seen as a 6 out of 10 solid squad player that does a job. But he's not a top level player. He's not an elite level player. He's just a good player. He's a good squad player. He's a good player to have because he's versatile, can play many positions, and he stays fit and he's rarely injured. Dalot's a good player to have in that sense. I wouldn't want him as my starting right back. I wouldn't want him as my starting left back week in, week out. I think he's a liability. But as a player, he's solid. Do you know what I mean? Like, solid. But Man United are looking at it and thinking, if a team comes in and offers 30 million for Dalot, they're going to consider it. We've been looking at attacking right backs. We've been looking at attacking left backs. We will consider it. We've got Dalot, we've got Mazraoui. We're happy with both players. Both players are solid. But we are interested in signing a fullback. And you look at someone like Dalot and you go, well, to be fair, his contract's running down a little bit. Is he really what we want long term? He's a good squad player. If you're getting offered 30 million for a squad player, you take it. And there is interest in Dalot. It is one to watch. And Ineos may be ruthless and say, you know what? We didn't think that Ineos were going to do what they did to Højlund, but they did it. Ineos could shock us. We saw Anthony, we saw Sancho, we saw Garnacho, we saw Onana, we saw Højlund. We didn't know that Ineos were going to be brutal like that. Ineos might go to Dalot and go, you just haven't been good enough. And they might just force him out. And look, Dalot's had some good games. He's had some bad games. I think he's inconsistent. I don't think Dalot's a bad player. I just don't think he's a great player. I think he's a good player. I think he's a 6 out of 10 player. I think he's a solid player. but I don't think he's a great player, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, like with Delo, I think he's one of those players that, if there is interest there and if there's offers there, I think Man United will put pressure on Delo. We've got an offer from Inter for you. I think Man United will put pressure on Delo to look at that. 2 fullbacks, 1 centre midfielder, keeper Garte and Casemiro. Try Dorgu in attack. Ivan Toney. Alan, Casemiro's already confirmed he's leading. I think your 2 fullbacks would be great, but I would rather get 1 fullback and 2 midfielders than 2 fullbacks and 1 midfielder. Casemiro's already confirmed he's leading. I like Ivan Toney, don't get me wrong, but I would rather go and sign a left winger than another striker. We don't have a left winger. A big win against Newcastle and Chelsea. Loss equals 9-point gap could be huge. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Steve makes a good point here. If Chelsea lose to Villa and we win, we have a 9-point gap. We have a 9-point gap with 8 games left. 9 points gap with 10 games left. Meaning if we win 7 of our remaining 10 games, we get Champions League football. We could afford to drop points in 3 games and we'll play Chelsea, Villa and Liverpool. So, yeah. We aren't going to that next level with Delo as a starter. Facts, says Steve. I like Delo as a squad player, but I agree. I think as a starter, he's limited. Wharton's better than whole midfield. Wharton's overrated. I like Wharton. I think he's very good on the ball, but I think he's overrated. I think he's a defensive liability. I think he's an 8, not a 6. Can you see Wolves getting a result tonight, Alice? I have a feeling they will. Yeah, I have a feeling that Wolves will make it half for Liverpool. I think Liverpool win. But we saw Wolves Arsenal. We saw Wolves Villa. Wolves are causing the big teams issues. They're no walk in the park. I think Wolves could cause an upset. Talking of Villa, Aston Villa and Fulham are among Premier League clubs interested in Manchester United's Mason Mount. I like Mount. When fit, he's a valuable squad player. Good player. Good player to come in the midfield. Valuable player. Problem with Mason Mount is he's never fit. He can't stay fit. It's actually infuriating, Mason Mount's lack of ability to stay fit. It's infuriating. And I just think, you can't rely on Mason Mount. You can't rely on him. While I like him when he's fit and why I think he's a decent player to have, I'd sell Mason Mount in the summer. And I'd replace him with someone like Morgan Gibbs-White that was more reliable. Or if Tottenham get relegated, maybe you look at James Maddison, but then he's injury prone. Who knows? I would sell Mason Mount. I like Mason Mount. I think he's been a valuable player this season. He's had some luck staying fit this season. He's been good. But he's not shown enough. And he's always injured. I think if he wasn't always injured, I wouldn't be saying sell him. I think if Mason Mount could stay fit, I'd be saying keep him. But Mason Mount cannot stay fit. If someone comes in with 25 million for Mason Mount, you accept that. If someone comes in with 30 million for Delo and 25 million for Mason Mount, you accept that. If I'm Ineos, I do look at it and I maybe look at pushing Mason Mount one way, pushing Delo one way, Agate, Xerxes one way. Of course, you don't want to let them go for nothing. You don't want to let them go for free. You've got to get good offers in. But I look at it and I went, they were brutal last year with the bomb squad. Onana, Højlund, they've Garnacho, Anthony, Rashford, Sancho, all forced out. I look at them this season. I think bomb squad is the players that we loaned out that we can't get permanent deals for. I think Malacia, he runs out of contract. But I think Agate gets kind of thrown in that bomb squad. I think, Xerxes potentially could be there. I think Mason Mount, if he can't stay fit and the new manager comes in, Mason Mount, Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw's another one we've not mentioned. There's Delo. They all could be potential players we look to sell. I don't think they'd be in the bomb squad because they're valuable players in the dressing room and they're well liked. But I do look at Luke Shaw. I do look at Diogo Delo. I do look at Mason Mount and think, could Man United sell them? Could Man United go, you know what? Could Ineos go, you know what? They're just not offering enough. Even though there's good personalities, we're not putting them in the bomb squad. Could United say, you know what? Time to be ruthless, time to move them on. I feel action players sends a message, you snooze, you lose. I agree. Mount, good player, just have problems with injuries. Look, if Mount could stay fit, I'd like him. Mount should be investigated for health insurance fraud. Same with De Ligt, to be honest. De Ligt's been forever injured. Look, I don't think Fulham can afford Mason Mount wages, but I think Villa could be one to watch. Mason Mount, his wages sounds like a Rashford option to me. We'd be lucky to get someone to pull his wages for a year. That's the problem. I don't think Mason Mount will go anywhere because of his wages. I think Delo we can sell. I think Agate will go. I think Xerxes will go. I don't think Mason Mount will go anywhere because of his wages. I think Ineos will be open to selling him, but I don't think he'll go anywhere. Talking like we're nailed in Champions League. Look, we're not nailed on Champions League. I'm talking as if we do get Champions League, but we're not nailed on for it. But, if Chelsea lose and we win this week, there's 9 points. it'd be a big bottle job not to do it. Selling too many players could disrupt the dressing room. Do you think Delo amount of pop in the dressing room? Yeah, I think relatively so, but they're not Bruno Fernandes or Casemiro is the biggest loss. Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes are probably two of the biggest people in the dressing room. Look, don't get me wrong. You don't want to sell everyone. You don't want to disrupt the dressing room too much. But people leave. People leave. People come. I think Bruno would be the biggest disruption to the dressing room. I think with Casemiro going, I'd keep Maguire. I'd keep Bruno. I'd see what happens with Delo. I'd see what happens with Mount. I'd see what happens with Xerxes. I'd see what happens with Agate. But look, they're going to be a presence in the dressing room for sure. But they're not Bruno. They're not Casemiro. They're not the most influential names. But yeah, you can look at it and say we don't want to sell too many people. You could argue. Genuine question: is Mount committing health insurance fraud? Obviously not. He's just made of breadsticks. He's made of breadsticks. Luke Shaw. Look, Man United should look at selling Luke Shaw. I bet Luke Shaw will be out until like August now with this injury, and we can't sell him because he's been injured. I actually felt that we had a chance of selling Luke Shaw this summer. I actually thought we had a chance of selling Luke Shaw this summer because I was like, he stayed fit for a year. There's 1 year left on his deal. I was like, you know what? People have seen he spent a whole year fit. Maybe someone makes a bid for him. He's a decent player. 1 year left on his deal. Maybe someone makes a 10 million bid. Now Luke Shaw's injured again. I'm like, yeah, just can't see us. I see him staying and leaving on a free next year. But look, if we could sell Luke Shaw, bring in a top left back. If we could sell Delo, bring in an attacking right back. I mean, I'm not that bothered about selling Delo, but I do think we could do better. Like, if we can sell Mount and bring in someone like Morgan Gibbs-White as Bruno backup, great. Xerxes I'm not too bothered about, but I think he just wants to go for minutes. But if Agate and Casemiro leave, we bring in 3 top midfielders. If Mount leaves, we bring in a 4th midfielder that's more of an attacking mid. One fullback if Shaw leaves, 2 fullbacks if Shaw and Delo leaves. Left winger needed anyway. Maybe you look at a striker. If Xerxes goes, I think you definitely look at maybe a backup striker to Sesko just in case there's injuries there. But Cunha and Bumo can play central. I personally wouldn't sell Maguire. I would keep him for another year, but on lower wages, of course. How long is he injured? I don't know. I don't know when Mount's back. I don't know when Delic's back. I don't know. I don't know when Shaw's back. We haven't got any news. I know Carrick's got a presser today, so maybe we do get some news. Lewis Hall will show you how Shaw is finished. He will, but Lewis Hall ain't going anywhere near Man United. So as much as I'd like him, it's not going to happen. Maguire is only playing 15 games next season. He's a waste of time. I mean, look, I get that, he's not going to ideally be your starter week in, week out, and he's on higher wages and he's older, but I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. I think he's a good player to have in the dressing room for experience. I think he's a player that will be really valuable when he does come in and play, and he's a good depth option. And with Champions League football and Casemiro leading, the lack of good headers on the ball, the lack of leadership, I'd keep Maguire as long as he's not on a ridiculous wage. I think he's a good backup centre-back to have. Thought Shaw was feeling not well. Carrick didn't mention injury after the game. I mean, I'm hoping that's why, but some people are saying that there's a feeling that Shaw has picked up a little niggle or something. Maguire is a great 5th option, to be honest. If his wages reflect that, he should stay. I agree. I think Maguire, the only concern again is he's picked up a few injuries lately. I think that's the only concern with Maguire. He's picked up a few injuries lately. He's on higher wages. But every time Maguire stepped in this season, he's been good. So I would keep Maguire as an option. I would sell Shaw. I'd sell Delo. I'd sell Mount. I'd sell Agate. Obviously, Casemiro's unfortunately leaving. But no, I would keep Maguire. I think if Casemiro's going, I think keeping Maguire and Bruno for leadership is important. Keeping Maguire for aerial presence is important because I think people underestimate what is brought aerially by Casemiro as well. Dorgo is an attacking left back for sure. He's an attacking left back for sure. I mean, I don't think you can sell everyone this summer. So look, Casemiro's leaving, Agate's leaving, 3 new midfielders come in. Realistically, no one's going to buy Mason Mount because of the wages he's on. So Mason Mount probably won't go anywhere. So you've got 3 midfielders coming in to replace Casemiro and Agate because we need another one for depth. Luke Shaw goes and another left back comes in that's reliable, that's attacking, cool. If Luke Shaw goes, Delo probably stays as a squad option because he is reliable. And then we need a left winger. And then maybe if Xerxes goes, you look at bringing in a second attacker. But like again, I see why people say this. Like I actually do like Xerxes. I think he's a different profile. I think he's a different profile, and he brings something. He can drop deeper, and he controls. But I like Xerxes. He's not got many minutes this season, but that's because we're not in European football. I think he's a valuable profile to have. And I think Xerxes is one of those where it depends on who the manager is. There might be a manager that comes in and goes, yeah, no. And there might be a manager that comes in and goes, I want him. I want him as an option. Because Xerxes was good when he came off the bench, in the Palace game. He was really good. Anyway, people, I'm going to wrap up the show here. Thank you for watching. I will be back tonight with 10-minute roundup. See you next time. Bye.